Hey class, Prof JC here, and I want to welcome you to week 1 of Business 6048P, which is a class that we've entitled Leading with Purpose. And I got to tell you what, this might be my favorite class to teach. It just might be. And here's the reason why. It's a 1-unit class, which means it's not as many units as the others. It's not as much work, but I think this is important work. Much of what we're going to do in this class is it's reflective. It's for you as a leader. It's for you to think about your organization in which you lead, the organization that you want to lead one day. It's for you to think personally, right? It is amazing to me, okay, between my teaching here and some of the corporate training that I do, how many people who are even in their 30s, 40s, 50s still haven't really thought about this idea of purpose. How many organizations move forward, how many businesses move forward, and they haven't really given thought to what is the purpose for my organization? What is the purpose for why I show up every day? What's the purpose for this product, this service? What good am I supposed to do in the marketplace, right? What good is my product or service supposed to do in the marketplace? And so this is a course where I always tell people these 1-unit ones are the course where you get to slow down and just reflect, right? And the other courses, oftentimes they're a little bit quicker paced because especially if you're online, or even if you're in person, you're doing 16-unit courses. But if you're doing any online courses, they're 8 weeks. But on a course like this, you get to just settle in and just kind of reflect and really talk about this idea of purpose. And so that's what this class is about. It's really to dive in on you, it's to dive in on your purpose, and it's to dive in on the organization in which you work or the organization that you're trying to build, okay? So here's how this is going to work, all right? Every other week for this course, what we're going to have is a podcast. So we're going to have one here on week 1, and then it'll be week 3, week 5, week 7, week 9, week 11, week 13, we take off because we have Thanksgiving break, and week 15. Okay. And so what I'm going to do during this podcast, I'm going to take the books that are some of the books are required for you. Some are not necessarily required for you, but I'm going to take the books that you've been asked to buy, again, recommended or required or recommended. And I'm going to pick certain parts out of them, things that I think are important to you. And we'll talk about them here in the podcast, about 10 to 20 minutes. If you've ever had me before, I might go a little bit over if I get really passionate about something, but hopefully between 10 to 20 minutes will be the podcast length. And then throughout the podcast, I'll ask you some questions, right? I'll have some questions that I'll ask you either at the end of the podcast, or I might bake the questions in the podcast, throughout. And so your job is just to watch, listen to the podcast, and then you kind of get the questions. You answer the question. You don't need to write papers on this. These don't need to be massive paragraphs. They can even be 2 to 3 sentences. Okay. But it just gives you the opportunity to listen, to reflect, to think, to write. And hopefully after a class like this, you come out with a little bit more clarity. And it could be personal clarity. It could be professional clarity. It could be organizational clarity, whatever it is that you need. Okay. So the required books are The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. You need to have that in your war chest anyway, because it's just an incredible book. It's been a game changer for me. Even now, writing my dissertation, it talks a lot about resistance, the resistance we have, right? And so when we're thinking about living a life of purpose and moving forward, what keeps many people and organizations and teams from really doing that is the resistance. And so it takes courage to kind of move through that. So there's another book. Now, I got to be honest with you. I know a little bit about this book, but I haven't gone through this book like we're going to go through it together this semester. It's called The Big Leap. And I think it's actually by, it says Gay Hendrick. So it's either Gay Hendrick or it's Gary Hendrick. I'm not sure which one it is, but here, let me actually just click on the link and we'll find out right now. I think it's Gary Hendrick. No, Gay Hendrick. Okay, I was correct in saying that. Okay, so the gentleman's name is Gay Hendrick, and so you can get that book. It is an incredible book on purpose, and we're going to walk through that together. There's the 4 Agreements. Some of you probably already have this one already. It's a great book. Again, it's another one that I think everyone should have on their bookshelf. Leaders should have. There's one great one in there that I just love. It says, it talks about taking nothing personal, right? So as we're walking this journey of purpose, right, these 4 agreements that we make with ourselves, I think are going to be important. And then the recommended recommended but not required is The Purpose Driven Life. That's a great book. I recommend that you get it, but again, it's not required, but we'll walk through that book quite a bit. And as a matter of fact, we'll start off here by just defining what purpose is, right? And seeing what purpose is based on the purpose driven life. Okay. So there we go. So there's the books, and here's how this is going to work. Okay, every Sunday you'll get an announcement from me. Make sure you read the announcement. If there are any changes in the week, it's going to be in the announcement. And so if you don't get the change, right, and you start emailing me, Prof. JC, what's going on with it? I'll tell you, hey, read the announcement, okay? But every week in this class is going to be pretty consistent. So you get an announcement from me every Sunday, and then the video podcast will be released at some point throughout the week, but it'll be available to you starting at the beginning of the week. And so you just watch the podcast on the weeks that we have a podcast, and you just answer the questions. That's it. It's really simple. And make sure you have it turned in. You've got it turned in by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. That's it. Okay. Now, on the other weeks when we're not doing that, we're going to be working on just reading reflections. Okay, so you'll pick, I'll pick for you. I'll pick the book and we'll pick a passage, and I'll just ask you a question, and it's going to require some reading. So you sit down that week and you just read a chapter, whatever it is. You answer 1 to 3 questions, and then that's it. Okay, so that's what this is going to be about. It's a 1-unit class, and it's not meant to be a headache for you. As a matter of fact, I want you to see these 1-unit classes as being kind of a breath of fresh air. That, now I can sit, relax, read this a little bit. It's kind of fun reading. It's all about you. It's about your organization. It's, it can be very personal if you want it to be, and you get a chance to reflect on that, right? So don't think about these, as like all these 1-unit classes are like a little mosquito in my ear. I want you to think instead, hey, these 1-unit classes, it's like a breath of fresh air. Okay. And so that's how I want us to think about it. Okay. So here's what I want you to do to start off. Okay. Well, real quick. As we kind of go, I'm just looking through the next few weeks. I just want to give you a heads up of kind of where we're going. Some of the most important things that we're going to look at in the next few weeks. Again, we're just going to look at these books. We're going to do some reflection. Our midterm assignment is going to be on the idea of love and hate. And I got to be honest with you, I need to write that one up in more detail. But as we get to the midterm, I just want you to be thinking about part of understanding our purpose, okay, is understanding what drives us, right? And some of you in the class, you already know what your purpose is, you know where you're going, and that's great. So this is going to be an easy class for you. Some of you are not quite sure yet. You're not sure what you're doing. You're not sure where you're going. So that week, our midterm, we're going to look at, well, what do we love and what do we hate? Right. And so by that, I mean, what is the thing that is our greatest passion, right? What's the thing that excites us? It gets us out of bed every day. And then what's that thing in the marketplace that we look at and we say, that really frustrates me? Out of this love/hate, it's the intersection of those two that really brings you to your purpose. So I'm very excited about that one. So for instance, for an example, you might say, Prof. JC, what are you talking about? For instance, for myself, what gets me out of bed every day is I love to teach. I love people. I love being able to impact the lives of people through education, through leadership. I grew up in a family of educators, so I just believe in the power of education to transform societies and the world. I believe in businesses to transform, the power of business and organizations to transform societies in the world. So that's kind of the love, right? The thing that I hate, right? That's a strong word, but the thing I don't like is bad leadership. And like you, I'm sure we've all had those bad bosses out there, and I can think of 3 on the top of my head. Years ago, I worked for one who was just probably the worst boss of all time. I mean, everybody in the organization couldn't stand this person, and he was actually a nice person. I had a chance to get to know him. He was actually a really nice guy, but he was just racked with doubt and insecurity and fear. And so it wrecked the organization. It wrecked people. And I saw what it did to people. and I've seen it several times in my career. And so years ago, I made I said that's my passion. If I can help develop leaders, if I can help through teaching, and if I can help businesses grow and become better. So anyway, that's mine. We want to discover what yours is, right? So mine is at that intersection of what I love and what I'm passionate about and what I hate in the world, right? I can't stand bad leadership. I can't stand bad leaders, but I love to teach. So you bring these things, together, and that's what it is. You also have something like that. So we're going to talk about that in week 8. I'm excited for that. And then we're going to end up our time, and I'm very excited about this week 16 with life mapping. And you're going to map your life out. Okay. You're going to look back a little bit and map out kind of what's got you to where you are. And you're going to map forward about 20 years. Okay. And you're going to write out a personal vision statement. You're going to have a map that you're going to do. And some of you might be thinking, oh, come on, Prof. JC, that sounds cheesy. A couple weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast by a gentleman, or actually, it was by two men who were talking about a gentleman that I greatly respect. He's actually, I have kind of in my own personal life, I have I call it there's a certain Mount Rushmore of great leaders that I look up to, of great people that I look up to, and so there's about 6 of them, and they've all been highly successful in life, and they're just people I look up to. One of them, I was listening to an interview where 2 people were talking about this person. And one of the things, if you watched this person that I look up to, okay, the guy that I look up to, he's a gentleman. He's been around a long time. He's like 89 years old, very successful in his career. And he'll have you believe if you talk to him, oh shucks, this thing just happened. I had no clue. I'm just a farm boy from Indiana, and oh, look at all these things that happened. And you know, that's the image he tries to put out there. But I listened to 2 people who were talking about him behind the scenes, and they had an interaction with him, and they were walking around his big estate that he has now, right? And a bunch of awards and accolades that he's gained throughout the years, and they said something along like, "Wow, this must have been a surprise to you." And he said, "None of this was a surprise. None of this was an accident. We had a plan, and we stuck to the plan." That I got to tell you, that really amazed me just listening to it. He said, none of this was a surprise. None of this was an accident. We had a plan and we stuck to the plan. Now, again, this is a very successful man, age 89 years of age, greatly impacted in his area of the world. He's the cream of the crop. And I heard that a couple weeks ago, and it just, I don't know, it deeply impacted me. I mean, I got out my journal and I started writing about it, how important it is that we're very intentional with our lives. I'm trying to be with my own life, and I hope that I show you that by example in my own life. But I want that for you. I want that for you when you walk out of Point Loma Nazarene University. That not only are you excited about kind of your degree that you're going to have, your master's of business or your master's of leadership, but that you've got a plan about where you're going. And here's one thing I'm telling you: as I study very successful people, this is what I see time and time again. These are not people who just it happens by accident. It's all intentional. Okay. They've sat down and they worked through this, and they think about it, and they make tough decisions as they go through. But part of making those tough decisions, you've got to know your purpose, right? So if you want to know all the things you got to say no to, you got to know exactly where you're going. And then everything else, and that's the hard part, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Everything else you got to get out of the way. Okay. That's more that we talk about in our integrity class: the courage to do what we're called to do, the courage to be who we're called to be. But we talk about that some in this class as well. How do we get rid of the resistance so we can move forward on purpose? So anyway, I'm getting excited, right? So you can tell, this is going to happen in some of our classes here. But those are going to be 2 great assignments. And then the rest of the weeks is just reflections and just kind of moving in the directions about we do this. Okay. So here's the first question I have for you that I want you to answer this week. And the question is, what's the one thing I want to take out of our time together over the next 16 weeks? I just want you to think about that. What's the one thing that you want to take out of this class over the next 16 weeks? And it's important for me to hear that because it helps me kind of guide where we're going, right? As we get halfway through the course, you're going to take a midterm, or you'll take a midterm evaluation, and that'll help us see, are we on the right track? Do we need to go in a new direction? I always want your feedback and your help to make sure that this is good for you, because this is about you. Okay, so that's the one thing. You can answer it in 1 to 5 sentences. Okay, what's the one thing that you want to take out of our time together over the next 16 weeks? I'm very excited about this with you. And I'm trying to think about any other announcements I need to make before we kind of exit. And I think the only one that I would say, my cell phone is wrong in the course announcements that I've sent. I always tell people, if you email me, my goal is to always get back to you within 24 hours. Sometimes that doesn't happen. I've got emails coming from all over the place. I've got a busy life, just like you do. So if that happens, just send me a text message, okay? And I've had students do it before, and it's great. I don't get annoyed by it. Don't call me. No phone calls. I'm probably not going to answer. But you can text me, and I'll get back to you very quickly on that, okay? But only, always try to email me first. And if that doesn't work, then you can send me to, hey, Prof JC, I sent you an email. Can you get back in touch with me? I think that's all I got for you. Okay, you heard the question. If you didn't hear it, back up, and you can hear the question that you need to answer this week. I'm really excited about these 16 weeks with you, and I hope it's value add for you. Hope it's value add for all of us. Thanks so much for being in this class, and it's going to be a good time. I'll see you in the next podcast episode, which will be week 3. Next week, we'll start with our reflective assignments, where you read something and then you'll write, just a little bit. And again, when you do these are not major assignments, okay? Some weeks it'll be a few sentences. Some weeks it might be a paragraph or 2. That's it, okay? Again, I don't want this class to be a burden for you. I want it to be a breath of fresh air, and where you walk away and you've had a good time, but you've got some intentionality about where you're going, where your organization's going, where your company's going, where you're going. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.